reinstalling this carburetor on the Recon 250. I've got the carburetor in my hands here. You want to make sure that you've got this bottom hose. It doesn't really matter which direction it is, except for there's already a clamp on this side. I'm going to shove that on there, and then you want to make sure that you get that routed so it's not just sitting directly on top of your motor. This is going to be, if you remember me talking about this hose earlier, the hose that the fuel dumps out if there's too much fuel in that bottom bowl there. So we've also got this line here. You want to make really for sure that when you put this on, that this clamp is not in the position to where it's going to pinch this hose. What that does is, if there's any kind of dry rot on this hose, a lot of times when you take and push it onto the nipple on the actual carburetor itself, it'll break off a chunk of rubber. Problem when that happens is then that rubber goes straight into that float valve that we were talking about, holds that float open, and immediately your four-wheeler is going to start leaking fuel after that bowl fills up. So you want to make sure you take and push that clamp up a little ways. You want to make sure this is all clean and in good condition before you shove it onto the four-wheeler. Maybe before we do that, we ought to install the choke cable, since we're going to kind of be in that same area. So we're going to install that, put that in that groove there. Hopefully you can see it from that camera angle. Screw that Phillips in a little bit, and pull that around there, and then you want to make sure that when you tighten this up, that you're not actually engaging the choke. So make sure that that choke is all the way down, but you do want to make sure that when you pull that choke knob, that choke is engaged. So before we tighten this down completely, I want to make sure that when I pull the knob at the handlebars, that choke cable will actually pull that knob there. So looks to be in good condition and in the correct spot there. We'll go ahead and snug that up. All right, now that is snugged up there. Now we have got this fuel vent line here. This goes up to in front of the fuel tank. You can shove that on there. That just goes on right in front of that choke knob. Then we have your fuel line. Okay, this one right here kind of circles around everything and it'll go into your top plunger area there, that top cap. Again, you want to make sure that that the clamp is pulled off of the end there, so you don't cause that to push rubber down in that diaphragm area. Okay, that'll circle around to there. And then make sure you push that clamp back to where it needs to be. Okay, now I'm going to take and make sure that this O-ring, before you get too far, make sure that that O-ring is in good condition. That's what's going to seal off so you don't have an air leak going down into your engine. That can cause all kinds of problems if you do. So make sure that stays in position. If that continues to fall off or you have issues like that, what you can do is take a little Vaseline or very little bit of grease there, put it on there. That'll kind of hold that into place. Take and snug up that 10mm nut on that side. And we'll go on this side, which is a little more challenging. And what I had to do for a different one is actually take a screwdriver, hold that into place there, and then just use your finger and turn it on there just to get it started. Once it's started, typically it threads on pretty easily, and then you can get your wrench in there. Snug those up. Again, that'll cause a major air leak if you don't have those tightened up. So make sure those are good and tight before you go much farther. All right, now we have that on. Now what I'm going to do is take our fuel line coming from our fuel tank. Slide that into position. Again, just trying to make sure this is actually going to go underneath of here. I don't know if that's completely necessary, but just to have less kinks in these hoses, I'm going to put these underneath of the choke cable here and the other vent line. Slide that on, just being really careful you don't break off any rubber pieces into that nipple there. Then we'll take this clamp and set it down right on top of that hose there so it's putting pressure on that hose. I'm going to need a pair of pliers to do that. Okay, take that clamp, slide it down. Okay, that's in position there. Okay, now we've got our top cap. This is actually going to just go down one direction. So you've got your idle side on that one. We've got our idle screw adjustment on that side. And this has just got a small pin to keep this slide going straight up and down. So slide that down into place there. You might have to wiggle it back and forth a little bit and then take and screw that on. You should have, I wanted to show you, a seal up top of here, down inside of this cap, that'll seal things up so that you do not have an air leak up top there. You want to make sure that that O-ring is good and make sure that that's in place before you start screwing this on. Now, once you get this screwed on here, you can take and push on your throttle. That should go up and down freely. If it does not, you may have other issues. I've had people try to put these on the wrong side, and that actually that idle adjust tab or that notch where that is will slide down on top of that groove on the left-hand side, and it'll keep that slide held clear open. So if your four-wheeler, as soon as you start it, is bouncing off the rev limiter, more than likely what happened is either put that slide in the wrong direction, or that slide for whatever reason is being held wide open. So you want to make sure that that's not the case. Now what we're going to do is take and put this vent here in place. You've got your tab here that you want to make sure sits down onto. There's a frame rail that goes right down underneath of your fuel tank. You can just take and press that down into place. Okay, we'll stick that tab down there, push that into place. These hoses will come over top here, go right into this groove on this air duct. All right, next we're going to stick our air box in. We've got this bottom hose that actually goes directly to the crankcase. Make sure that that's on. That should have a clamp. It looks like about a 3/4 inch hose, probably outside diameter. Slide that into place. Make sure that that clamp goes on there. If you put those carburetor air boots on first, you're gonna have a harder time getting your hand in between your air box and your carburetor and your exhaust here to attach that. So I like to do that first, and then we can take and slide our air box into place. The next clamp I like to do is the one by your carburetor or onto your carburetor, so that way you're not sliding dirt and stuff down into your actual carburetor there. So tighten up this clamp here, Phillips screw, and then you can get your hand down alongside of this other air intake here and push that one into place. A little more flexible on this boot here. And then you might have to take and slide your hand behind it and put a little pressure forward while you're pushing this this air duct in. Slide your clamp to a place that you can get to it with your screwdriver. Since this side panel is off, we can come in from the side there, snug that up. Now at this point, you could actually take your four-wheeler, start it up. All you have left is side panels and rivets here to put in your air box. So we're gonna go fire it up at this point. Make sure you turn your fuel on. So we get that slid on. You wanna make sure you're not dumping fuel out the bottom. Once that bowl is filled, if you are dumping fuel, like I said, more than likely something was stuck in that fuel line holding that float open. I'm pretty confident in my work here, so I'm gonna start putting these rivets in while I'm letting that bowl fill up with fuel. Slide that on, turn it on, choke it. There you go. So a four-wheeler runs good, starts up good once you pump fuel in there. So sometimes it takes a little bit to pump that fuel into that carburetor, into that engine, since everything was completely drained. So now that fuel's in there, starts right up, it idles good. Maybe idles a little bit high, so I'm gonna turn that down. Not a big deal, but I'm gonna let that warm up first. We've already shut the choke off. On this one, it's sort of automatic, it's spring loaded, and it kind of just drops that throttle down or that choke lever down after you let go of that knob. So that is the carb clean on a Honda Recon 250. If you guys have questions or comments, make sure and leave those below. If this video has been helpful, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. I'm gonna go ahead and throw these panels on there, and we are gonna be good to go. I've got a handful of other videos coming out on this Recon, so make sure you check those out. We're gonna service this one. A couple of wear parts we're gonna take care of. Otherwise, these four-wheelers are in great condition. Gonna probably end up selling one of them. I've got a electric shift, and I've got a foot shift. So let me know in the comments below what you guys feel these are worth. Also, any parts or tools that we use during this video, I'll have links below. Make sure you check those out. Again, I appreciate all you guys watching.